nervous. Hello and welcome back to the Give and Go. My name is Reynoso. I'm here with my co-host
Soltero. What's up, guys?
Tunisia. Tunisia. They are making what is going to be their 6th appearance at the World Cup now. In 1978, they made their first appearance. So somehow they made it in the fucking 70s, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Group stage exit. And then after that, they only had 4 more appearances. Group stage exits and all of them, man. So Tunisia.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Tunisia is a team that has been plagued by group stage exits, has never been able to make it to a round of 16.
Fuck.
So I can only imagine how much excitement the Tunisian people will have when they do one day make it to that round of 16 game. Could it be at this tournament? We'll talk about it, man. We'll talk about it. Do you actually remember in 2018 when they beat Panama 2-1 in the World Cup?
Yeah.
That was their second win in the World Cup. And that team must have been like their golden generation or something, or maybe the best Tunisian team to date, because remember that game where they went up against England and they were tied 1-1 until the 91st minute when Harry Kane scored a goal. Yeah. That is an incredible showing for Tunisia, man.
Absolutely.
Incredible showing. They've been one of the most consistent teams in Africa for decades, bro. Decades. They've made 15 consecutive AFCON appearances, and 11 of those times, they've gone all the way to the quarterfinals. The catch here is that out of those 11 times they've been in the quarterfinals, they've gone out 7 times in the quarterfinals.
Right.
So they have a really interesting place in the African football genesis. Just recently, they took down Nigeria in the AFCON tournament, which was really surprising for me watching that game and seeing Tunisia take it to them. It was immediately noticeable how organized this team is, how disciplined they could be, and how almost cold they can be about how they go about getting a result. In the 3rd round of African qualification, they were drawn against Mali to face off in the African playoff system. And they had a really interesting turn of events, man. Do you remember, bro?
Interesting.
Do you remember that goal that Mali scored for Tunisia, bro?
It was so bad.
It was awful.
The worst day in that Mali defender's life. Not just career, but life.
Following that goal, 4 minutes later, he got a red card and got sent off, dude. Yeah. Haven't heard of him since. I really cannot imagine the turmoil that guy went through. My God.
And that was the difference.
That literally
0-0
was.
in the second leg.
Literally was. Tunisia could not find a way to break that Mali defense. And some would say Mali actually played a lot better in that 2-game leg.
I wanted Mali to go through, honestly. I thought that they had the prowess to beat Tunisia, but I'm not mad Tunisia ended up winning because they do have some skill, as you already pointed out.
Tunisia gets drawn into Group D of the World Cup, where they will be facing off against France, Denmark, and Australia. So good for Tunisia, man. They are back at the tournament. That's good to see an African nation representing their country and their continent. The question here for, honestly, most African teams at the tournament is, do they have the caliber and quality to make it out of their group? Because so often do we see them underwhelm in the group stage. Tunisia showed in 2018 that they were a team to not be underestimated, man. They really showed out and had a really good performance, even if they didn't make it out of the World Cup group stage. 4 years have passed since then. Does this team have what it takes to make it out of this fierce group with these qualified teams? There's plenty to discuss about this Tunisian team, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on them.
Bro, I get sentimental when I hear the words Tunisian football. And I don't know why. I really don't. It might be because of that beautiful red that they have on their flag, or that really cool circular symbol that they have in the center of their flag.
You're talking like nostalgia?
No, I don't know what it is. I just get sentimental when I think about Tunisian football, like almost as if they have some sort of place in my heart. And I think what it actually comes down to, and the reason why I get this way when I think about Tunisia is... Truly, I do think they are the underdogs of North African football. When you look at all of their neighbors, there's just class and history. When you think about Morocco, Algeria, Egypt. But Tunisia have found themselves making back-to-back World Cup appearances over teams like Algeria and Egypt, who have world-class players in their team. And when you look at Tunisia... there's some quality here, but nowhere near the likes of the names that Algeria, Morocco, or Egypt have. But they all occupy the same geographic space in Africa. And they all have the same passion for the sport.
Oh, yeah.
But Tunisia find themselves consistently playing good football, especially over these last 6 years. So I think I've almost recognized that. When I see Tunisia now and what they've been able to achieve, honestly, I'm very impressed. And there's also a huge history of Tunisian club football over these last 10 years where Esperance, more specifically, they've been able to win a lot of African Champions League. So I'm really glad to see that kind of extend to this national team to where they're able to find success and make it to back-to-back World Cups. I think it's an achievement, especially for a team like Tunisia, that honestly should not be overlooked. And it's an incredible achievement. I really do think so. So for a team like Tunisia, I see them as North African underdogs. But honestly, when I look at how I analyze this team, I see them similar to how I see Saudi Arabia. This is Tunisia World Cup round 2. They've been able to make it after making it in 2018 where they had a good showing, a respectable showing, as you rightly put. But the same contingent that made them successful in 2018, a large portion of them are here in 2022. The difference, they're more experienced. They're in form at club level, and they have that chemistry now built with each other. It gets a little weird, though, because of what you've said before. They've had weird AFCONs, and they had to put in a weird performance and get a little lucky against a very feisty Malian side. But at the end of the day, you said they're very cold and calculated, and I think that's why they're here again, because they didn't let Mali's athleticism or the dynamicism really get to them. They said, look, we don't care how pacey you are, we don't care how much you penetrate us, we know we're better than you, and we're going to somehow win this game, and that's exactly what happened. Whether it was an own goal, I don't know what would have happened, but I do think Tunisia's prowess and experience would have somehow gotten them past Mali anyway. And they've been able to show that. So I think Tunisia can come into 2022 almost maybe on a little bit of a high in the sense that, look, we've been here before. Can we just use that energy and that experience and try to have an equally good showing in 2022? Maybe even a little bit better. Now, it does get tough because you are playing against teams like Denmark and France. That's a very tough task. But they were able to do really well against England and maybe not so much against Belgium, but they did try when they were there in 2018. Who's to say that they don't at least compete, and I mean really compete, against France and Denmark this year in 2022? So when I look at that as a big scope for Tunisia, I get a little excited. Not too excited, but I get a little excited.
Yeah, man. I think for me, the game where I saw them play against Nigeria is so representative of this Tunisian team. Nigeria was so hot in that tournament, man.
They were.
Coming out of the group stage, they were the favorite. I remember we made a video on it.
I thought they were going to go all the
They
way.
were the favorite to win the AFCON because they were playing so well. What was his name? Moses Simon was playing at the top of his level, and there's no way that I could see any team stopping this super attacking offensive front for Nigeria. But in comes Tunisia, who then, I looked at them on paper and I was like, oh, Nigeria's got their number. They're fine. But what I saw from Tunisia that game, I think signifies what I think about this team. They approached that game in such a way where they stayed purely disciplined. They played so smart. They knew the limitations of each other and what they could do. And they kind of made the most of it. They all kind of realized like, hey, we may not be more talented than Nigeria, but we have a better game plan. We have a better coach behind us, and we have something in place that can really truly take us to the next level. And that's what ended up happening, man. Tunisia ended up getting one goal in that game, and it was a goal that propelled them to win the match. Same thing goes for that Mali matchup as well. No matter how they got it, they got one goal, and then they just sat back. They let the other team come at them and try to take the game from them, and they just couldn't. So if anything, I think the only way that I could see Tunisia succeed at this World Cup is if they approach it the same way, man. They're going up against two giants in France and Denmark. They can definitely face off against Australia on a talent level. But if they approach it the same way, brother, this team could really surprise those European fan bases, especially if they go in underestimating what Tunisia is and what they can do, bro. They are tied 0-0 against Denmark going into that second half. Tunisia might get one shot to go up. And if they make it, then suddenly Denmark finds himself in a hole trying to get a goal. And this is not a team you want to be down on, man. This is not a team that you want to pursue a goal against because they are so good at just positioning themselves to be solid for a full 90 minutes. So Tunisia is coached by Jalil Qadri. He has some really interesting talent here because this isn't a team that is full of no names. There's actually some really prominent quality on this team.
Yeah.
For me, a couple of names that stand out to me is Skiri from Cologne in the Bundesliga. This guy is honestly one of the better defensive mids in Bundesliga, man. His stamina and work rate, if you watch these games, is truly impressive because he's able to keep up with the best of the best in that league. He's a workhorse, man. He never gets tired, and he is the engine of this Tunisian team. It'll be great to see him at the World Cup because this could truly be an opportunity for him to make a bigger move to a bigger club if he's able to perform at that same high level that he performs at in the Bundesliga. Out of these Tunisian players, he is one of the standouts for me because of the league he's playing at, but also just the quality that he plays at as well.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think Skeety can definitely bring his talent, his true talent and ability to just better the squad from a midfield perspective. But it doesn't end there, I think, in the midfield. Alongside him, you have Laiduni, who has been playing for Ferencváros in Hungary for a couple years now. And I don't know if you remember, but for a couple years, back-to-back, Ferencváros made Champions League group stage appearances. And,
shit.
Yeah, and
was he a part of those teams?
Yeah, Laiduni was a part of all of those appearances for Ferencváros, starting every game. And it was very clear that Laiduni was probably the more technical midfielder for Ferencváros in general. So I think Tunisia, you pair Skeety and maybe a more slightly flair midfielder in Laiduni, then you have a lot of options because I think Skeety can provide a lot of midfield coverage. And then ideally, if Laiduni can get on the ball and start feeling himself, he can maybe start getting a little bit more offensive, feeding to his wingers, feeding to striker, maybe it's Jazidi or whoever we end up talking about. I think Laiduni can be a good point for Tunisia to get a little bit more adventurous, especially if you have that trust in Skeety, as you already pointed out.
Yeah, man. So this midfield really does have something going for them, and that's truly impressive because we've mentioned how this is such a talent-filled World Cup. My God, bro! Like, you have really good talent here in the midfield.
Good. It's solid talent.
It's really solid.
Yeah,
it's really solid. And then up front, you mentioned Jaziri. I think there's a truly interesting debate between Jaziri and Khazri because Khazri is the second highest leading goal scorer for Tunisia in their history, bro.
Yeah.
And he's only 31 years old. Playing in France at Montpellier right now, not having the most insane statistical season right now, but in the past, he's played really well for them and for this Tunisian side as well. He's almost like their star up front, if you want to put it like that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see who Kadri goes with in this position. Ultimately, I think it'll be Kadri because of what he's almost like the Chicharito of Tunisia, man. Like he's on his way to becoming the highest leading goal scorer for this team. I think that has some merit there. And I think that his offensive prowess will ultimately earn him the starting spot. But that's not to mention that Jaziri is just as good of a striker too, man.
Yeah, it gets interesting because, in my opinion, I think the number 9 position for Tunisia is by far the weakest. It's where they're going to get the least output. As you said, I think Khazri is fantastic and he's a really good player, especially for Tunisia. But I do think he's a little bit past it. He's slightly declining maybe in his form and his output just simply isn't there. But if you look at maybe a younger prospect in Jazidi, Saifuddin Jazidi, you just don't see the same output that you'd want to see for a number 9. He's more classic, though. He's a true striker, Jazidi, playing in Egypt. But even then, yes, he's winning trophies in the Egyptian Premier League, but out of like 30 appearances, he max, and I mean max, scores 10 goals. And if you're the starting striker in a league for one of the better teams in that league and you're only getting max 10 goals, bro, that's low output in my opinion. In any league, even if it's the Premier League or you're in, Liga MX, I feel like you should always get close to 50% ratio if you're on the best team or if you're on one of the better teams or you consider yourself a good striker. Jazzi's just not even getting close to that, bro. So he's just not a true finisher. He's not ruthless in front of goal. And you see when he plays for Tunisia, he gets a lot of minutes under Kadri, a lot, but he doesn't really score that much. And I just think this number 9 position is going to be a really weak point because even if Msakni or Khazri or whoever else is playing on that wing, even if they find Jazidi in an open spot, I don't have any faith in him to actually finish it, bro. So this is the one position where I'm just like, shit, I don't think Tunisia actually have a good option to start there. The thing is, I do think he's actually going to go with Jazidi simply because he plays more of a traditional 9 role. And I think Kadri likes that. He likes a guy that will try to come in deep, hold the ball a little bit and try and lay it off, and a guy who will try to fight more for balls. I think Khazri will play a big role off the bench, more of a creative role when they really need someone to just maybe dribble a little bit more. I think Khazri's a better penetrator, but Jazidi's just more of a traditional 9. And so for formation's sake, I think Khazri is going to go with Jazidi. But I think the main guy that is going to feed whoever starts in that 9 position has to be captain and possibly the greatest Tunisian player to ever play on a pitch Youssef Msakni, who will play on the left wing. I have so much to say about this guy, man. But let's just
Baller.
Let's just start about what he does right now for this team. Absolute baller, incredible with the ball at his feet. What's crazy is that he doesn't really have a lot of pace. He's deceptively just very, very skillful. When he's on the ball, you can trust him to basically make the right decision. Whether he holds it, lays it off to his midfield, makes a good run, or he just finds himself in good space and looks for a killer pass. I think Msakni really thrives off the pass. That's where he's going to find the most joy offensively for this Tunisian team. Because like I said, he doesn't have a lot of pace. He's not the most athletic attacker, but he's just incredible with the ball at his feet off the pass. So I'm going to be looking for Msakni, man. But just more on this guy's fucking history, man. If you don't know who this guy is, just... there's got to be someone who's made a compilation of what he's done over his career, bro, because Msakni is one of those players where if you only watch European football or Liga MX football, you just have no idea how good this guy is. And it's a true shame because Msakni is like the African Jorge Valdivia.
Whoa.
He's like the
What a
African
comparison.
Yeah, he's like the African Omar Abdul Rahman. He's a guy that easily could have played in Europe in his prime because he's now 32 years old. But just for some reason, never did. Just never did. Whether it was circumstance or just the paychecks he was being offered was too much to ignore, he just ultimately decided, and it just never worked out for him, to go to Europe. And I'm going to go way back. I first saw Msakni play when he was like 20 years old, I think, back in 2011 in the CAF African Champions League final, where he ended up winning for Esperance, making his debut as a teenager a couple years before that. But it was very clear. There was a singular player who was a god out on that pitch at a very young age in a final. It was Youssef Msakni, bro. He was a baller from the very beginning, a baller. That year, he was the top goal scorer in Africa in the Champions League at like 20 years of age. And the year later, he won his 4th Tunisian title for Esperance, and he was the top goal scorer then in the league, too.
Good Lord.
Yeah, no, he was a baller, a straight baller.
Like an African Phil Foden, man.
no, pretty much, yeah. From a very early age, exactly. He was given the reins to be the creator and the best player for his team.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So he was, from a very early onset, the best player out on the pitch in Tunisia. And from there, dude, if you look at the amount of European names that was linked with Msakni, especially between the ages of like 21 and 25, dude, it's everywhere. La Liga, France, Bundesliga, England, Premier League teams. Every team was trying to get his signature. But who ended up getting him? A Qatari team.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Yeah. And it kind of makes sense because I think they speak the same language, Arabic, Qatar and Tunisia.
Yeah.
We actually said it in our Qatari preview. Qatar at the time was trying to get top talent and they were willing to spend a lot of money. And so who was popping off in Africa specifically?
Yeah.
Youssef Msakni.
My God, what a get, man.
What a get.
What a get.
And so obviously, I actually don't blame Msakni for taking it because I don't know how much he got, but I bet he got bank, bro.
Yeah.
I bet he got bank.
Yeah.
Bag alert, brother. You know what I'm talking
Bag
about?
alert. Major bag alert.
So Msakni definitely raked in that cash, and like I said, I don't blame him, but my fucking God, man, would have loved to have seen what he could have done in Europe,
I
bro.
wonder. I wonder if he would have been able to prosper. Do you think he would?
I think he would have. He had the talent to. Now, where this is where it gets interesting is that there comes a point where you decide, does a player have that mentality?
Yes.
Does a player have that desire to be like, look, I don't care what it takes. I want to be big in a big league. Maybe that's a criticism of Youssef. Maybe that's something you could point out is, look, man, even in his prime, he could have tried Europe for 2 years, brother. Just try it. But he never did. And I wonder what his decision was. Was it his agent? Was it him? Was it truly just the check was too much to ignore? I don't know.
He could have became the greatest Tunisian player of all time with how we started.
And that would have cemented it. Yeah. Because the build-up to when he was like 21, 22 was perfect. But then it kind of waned a little bit because he just went to an unknown league, at least unknown in the scope of world football.
Yeah.
And so that's where it gets a little tricky. And here's where it even gets a little bit more tragic, bro. He was injured in 2018.
Oh, shit.
He did not play.
Wow.
Right. And I remember in that build-up to Russia, I was like, fuck. This is the one guy I was excited to see for Tunisia because I had seen him grow his career with Esperance and obviously going to Qatar. I was like, In 2018, I was like, finally the world will get to see Msakni, and they never did. And what sucks is that he was in his prime, 28 years old, but he had like a really bad ankle injury or some bullshit. Yeah,
that's not good, man. That hurts.
And it adds even more to the idea that we will truly never know how good Msakni was in his prime.
You're right.
We'll never know.
Oh my God.
We'll never know.
The greatest player to never play, man.
Basically. Yeah, for Tunisia.
Basically,
for Tunisia specifically.
Basically,
we'll
man.
never fucking know. And it's a shame.
That's crazy. That's good. We never got to see him at the highest level in Europe.
No.
We never got to see him at even a World Cup
Right.
in his prime. Now we will, but it's not the
different.
same as when you're in your athletic prime, man. It's not the same.
It's not the same. So we will get to see him, at least thankfully, once at a World Cup for Tunisia. And I'm glad it's at least the second time around where at least the rest of the squad is more
That's what I'm saying.
experienced.
The team is a little better now.
The team's a little bit better, in my opinion. I completely agree. So hopefully, it can amount to some sort of good appearance for Msakni personally. But he will captain this side, at least offensively, if he's not going to captain them physically. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. But yeah, obviously, just a little hurt that he's just not in his prime, and we will never know. But hey, at least he's here, and maybe you can have one, not even big game, but one big moment.
What, he's 32 now?
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. I think at the very least,
Messi's 35.
at the very least, I'm not even asking for 90 minutes. I'm asking for one moment where Msakni puts in a worldie of a ball and it leads to a beautiful goal because he does have the skill. He has the skill to put in a ball that no other midfielder can.
Yeah.
And maybe we get just that one beautiful moment from Msakni.
Man, I'm thinking, man, if maybe he was meant to not go to Europe. Maybe he was meant to never play in that 2018 World Cup. Maybe he was meant to be at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar for what is going to be probably the best Tunisian team we've seen, playing more of a veteran role, playing more of a leader role. Maybe not being the flashiest player that he could be back in his day, but maybe being just that guy, bro. Maybe just still being that guy. He's still got that dog in him, man.
Yeah.
He's still got it in him. He's barking on that field, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to be a little optimistic here.
No,
Maybe
that's what I wanna
it
think.
works
That's what I
out.
wanna
Like
think.
maybe this ends up being the best thing that we could have seen, regardless of if he played in 2018 or not. We don't know. But I'm just happy that he's here. I'm happy that he has some good weapons around him. And you've got me fully invested in the Msakni
Watch every
journey,
touch,
bro.
every touch.
I'm gonna be thinking about just his whole career flashing across my eyes, man. I'll be like, holy shit, the shit this guy went through. Yeah, the Tunisian Phil Foden, bro. My God. So we discussed the offense, man.
Yeah.
Anyone else that stands out to you in the midfield or the defense or even the goalkeeper, anybody else that you think is worth noting for this Tunisian squad?
I think the rest of the squad, again, just has a lot of solid talent. I'm talking about players like Dalby or Dylan Braun, players who play in Europe and actually start for their respective teams. And that's something that Tunisia have as their starting center back pair, right? Dalby playing in France and Braun playing for Salernitana in Italy. So I think that's good quality that you can bring together to at least have hope to defend against players like Denmark or players like France. It's something that you can count on. And the rest are just going to be good, solid picks, whether they actually play in Tunisia, which is kind of cool. A player I think that actually might start alongside Laiduni and Skidi will be Chaleli, who plays for Esperance. So that's going to be really cool to see, a truly African-based player starting for Tunisia. And I think it's something that Tunisia have to offer. They have good talent just spread throughout the squad. But I'm going to really bank on the experience that this team now has. I hope that collectively that means something, bro, because yeah, I mean, from a result perspective, Tunisia's been just inconsistent. And that's where you can talk negatively about this Tunisian squad, bro, is that yes, they can be very organized, especially defensively, but their consistency, I think, is the only thing that I would actually criticize because, you know, at the end of the day, you'd like this team to be a little bit better with the quality that they actually have at their hands. But maybe it's because of how disciplined they are. Maybe they get a little tired of it. And so when they play against friendlies or against lesser teams, they're not as inclined to play as hard, right? But maybe at the World Cup, they say, fuck it, we're going to give our lives for 90 minutes against this top caliber teams. Maybe that's when Tunisia is actually at their best. So collectively, I'm hoping that Tunisia do exactly that.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, man, they made it to a tournament. They're one of the top 32 teams in world football.
Yeah.
I really do wonder if they're fans back at home. And if we have any Tunisian viewers, please let us know the thoughts of the people back in Tunisia. I wonder if they're hyped about this team, if
wonder.
they're maybe a little pessimistic about how it's looking, especially with the group that they got drawn into. I wonder what their outlook is on this Tunisian squad, because there's a lot of talent here. There's good quality, but I don't know. For me, from the outside, I just don't think it's enough.
Yeah, it gets tough.
It gets really tough.
Yeah.
You look at the results, and like the Mali game, would Tunisian fans be overall at the end of the day happy that that's how they got through, was through an own goal? I don't think that's enough of a dominant display to be excited about. So it's tough to kind of gauge where this Tunisian team is going into the tournament. But regardless of that, you made some really great points in highlighting some of these notable players where, at the very least, this team has improved a lot from 4 years ago, where they're playing at much bigger clubs now. They're much more prominent, and there is a future there. There's something to look forward to if you're Tunisian. All right, so Tunisia is drawn into Group D, where they'll be facing off against France, Denmark, and Australia. My prediction for this team is that I do think they'll get either third or fourth, but I'm actually kind of leaning more towards third, and it's only because of what they managed to do in 2018. I'm actually kind of impressed with how they were able to go up against England and get a victory against CONCACAF's very own Panama at the time. That says a lot to me, and as we're talking about Tunisia 2.0, I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe they can string out a victory against Australia, and maybe they can prove to be a tough team to beat against a Denmark, or even a France, man.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't see them getting out of the group. I don't think that's in their future. I think they still have a lot more developing to do in order to get up to that level. But at the most, I'm hoping for a respectable appearance at the World Cup, something that the Tunisian people can be proud of, and a third or fourth placement.
Yeah, I don't have much to add because my overall prediction is I think Tunisia will get third. They unfortunately won't have enough to get out of this group. But man, bro, if Tunisia can just grind that Tunisian way, then maybe they can get some sort of a result against a Denmark or against a France. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. Tunisia have shown, though, that they have some sort of grit to make it maybe possible. But I just ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't see it being enough over the course of 3 games in the group stage. So maybe they get one crazy result, but to do that 2 more times, I think will be a tough ask. So ultimately, I do have Tunisia finishing third, not getting out of the group.
And that is Tunisia, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know, what do you think about this Tunisian squad? First, second, third, or fourth place in this group? Please let us know. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe as we continue releasing more deep dives. I think we're now at 8 left now at this point. God knows how many. But man, the World Cup is getting near. We're going to be producing a lot of World Cup content. Shout out producer Rudd, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.